So while my background is in an individual sport, no one gets there alone. And in climbing, while it's an individual sport, you always have a climbing partner with you. And that's just the nature of being on a wall and getting to the top of a new summit is like it's you and your climbing partner. And so when I look at the business, it's me and the team. I don't accomplish anything on my own. I have this idea, I have this mission and this clear vision of what I want the brand to be. And then I love listening to everyone on the team's opinions and making sure that no one's ever siloed. Everyone's working together.
Welcome to the Marketing Rapport, a podcast created for and by marketing professionals who seek to better understand their consumers and design unique, personalized experiences that stand out in today's market. In each episode, hosts from Verisk Marketing Solutions connect you to industry thought leaders, practitioners, and experts focused on improving B2C experiences through powerful data-driven insights. It's about how we connect with our consumers and where we can partner together to do it better. This is the Marketing Rapport.
All right, welcome everyone to the Marketing Rapport. I'm Tim Finnigan, and I head up product marketing at Verisk Marketing Solutions. And we provide data, identity resolution, and insights to brands to improve their marketing strategies. On this podcast, I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to speak with chief marketing officers, CEOs, data scientists, and marketers all kind to explore how they can leverage data, how they can drive insights, and drive business growth to make impactful decisions. Well, today is no exception. I have arguably, is that a word? Yeah, that is a word. It's arguably one of the best marketers I've ever met. And I'm excited to introduce everyone to Sasha DiGiulian. She's CEO and founder of Senbars. Thanks for being here, Sasha.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to dig in.
Okay, well, where should I start? So you're a world champion rock climber. Yes. You're an author of a book called Take the Lead. It's on Audible for everybody. I'm listening to it right now. She also has a documentary on HBO. Okay, let me take a breath. She's also a film producer. She's lobbied in Washington, D.C. as an advocate for legislation on climate change and outdoor recreation. She has over 450,000 followers on Instagram. Oh my gosh. You are also on Good Morning America, interviewed by Ali Love, my third favorite Peloton instructor. Shout out to Olivia and Dennis. But finally, why we're here, we're going to do a deep dive as she's an entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Senbars, which she launched in 2022. Well, Sasha, that's all the time we have for today.
Cool. I'll just go do my workout and we'll chat later. Thank you so much for having me on.
So, Sasha, let's start with what inspired you to start Senbars.
Sure. So my background you touched on is a professional rock climber, and I've been climbing for over 25 years. I started when I was 6 years old. I probably should stop saying that because I'm going to start like dating myself, but that's fine. I'm okay with it right now. And I've traveled around the world to over 50 different countries for competitions, for expeditions, tried every single bar out there on the market. I challenge anyone to tell me a bar I haven't tried. And what started sticking out to me was that every single bar you flip over the label, what reads through is chemicals, preservatives, natural flavorings, refined sugars, brown rice syrups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there was nothing that I wanted to eat and feel really good having eaten those bars. And like I started making my own bars because I wanted to feel good. I wanted to have good nutrients in my body. This was back when I was a freshman at Columbia University, and my friends around the world started saying like, hey, can you bring me some of the Sasha bars? So I knew I wanted a name for it, and I registered Send because Send harnesses this power of what it means to show up and feel optimal for whatever your personal climb is. And then fast forward to 2020 was when I graduated from school, was actually looking down the barrel of a massive set of surgeries for an injury that I had this runway of time because I was flattened and not able to do my sport, that I started to kind of build the foundational blocks of what the company could be and crafting together the team to a launch in, I guess it was the summer of 2022.
And I've heard you say before, like when you were designing the Senbar, it was like, what's like good for me, good for the planet. Can you just sort of talk about the mission that you thought of even before when you were building it and how it sort of impacted the product?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much health washing on the market as well as greenwashing, frankly. And so when we were going about like, okay, what is going to be the product that is Send Bars? It's going to be made up of ethically sourced ingredients, all real food, nothing fake, everything you need in a bar, nothing you don't. We're a partner of 1% for the planet. So 1% of our gross profit goes to nonprofits that are making the world a better place and more sustainable place. As well, I think it's really important to note is that our entire manufacturing run is held in a tight radius to the Denver Boulder area. So where we make our bars is right around the corner from where we ship out our bars. That mitigates the emissions that we're producing on the environment of like instead of making them in one state, shipping them to another to then ship them out to somewhere else. We're trying to keep as tight of a radius on our supply chain as possible, including working with a sustainable packaging solutions company called EPAC, which is out of Boulder, staying on the pulse of, okay, where can we innovate in packaging? I think that right now, some of the explorations that we're doing is also at the rate of like what is going to guarantee us a viable business and ensure our customers that their product is built for last while having no preservatives, but also what can we do better and how can we constantly improve. I like to say that the company operates off of this athlete mindset. Well, you don't need to be a professional athlete to work at Send Bars. You do need to embody that. Like we are constantly improving. We're constantly trying to figure out what we can do better because as long as we keep innovating and keep standing true to our principles as a company, then I feel like we are set up to grow.
So, Sasha, your background, like you said, is a professional athlete, rock climber, national champion, and you went to Columbia for undergrad, but your main focus wasn't really in entrepreneurship or business and marketing, was it?
No,
I,
it's funny because like the experience that I have from climbing is taking this very niche sport that I happen to have early success in and then creating a career out of it. And that's very different from a lot of other sports because in a league sport, for instance, you kind of have the backdrop of league support. In a sport like climbing, very niche, not mainstream at all, you have to figure out like, okay, if I want to make a living from this sport, how am I going to align with the right partners in the form of endorsement deals where they're mission aligned to what I represent and their product and my belief system are in alignment? And then how do we work together towards bringing this story to life to as many people as possible? So really capturing the storytelling aspect, I would say, has come through the journey of like building the brand that is me. At Columbia, I studied nonfiction writing and business management. However, I didn't have any like masters in marketing or anything like that. I've been very throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks, course correct, and continue to learn.
let's talk a little bit about that, the course correct. So, when you were creating Sendbars and you're just starting, was there like a pivotal moment where you're like, "Oh, this makes sense," because we're either getting feedback or what? Was there a data source or what was that moment where you're like, "Oh, I think this can really work"?
My aha moment was I travel to these locations where it's so hard to get greens. And I'll be even living up on a portaledge, like 1,500 feet up on a cliff face. And you're bringing everything as nutrient dense as you can because every gram counts when you're basically pulling all this weight up a wall. And I thought, how can I get my greens? Because my body feels really good. My whole digestive system, everything feels really good when I'm still eating my greens. And I started putting them into my bars that I was making. And all of a sudden, it was like this aha moment of, wow, I can eat my greens in a way that actually tastes good, that I'm not tasting them because they're in this bar that gives this like homemade taste to it. And so that was one of the moments where I was like, I definitely want this differentiating factor to be built into our product in the future. And I feel very proud about having kind of hacked that of like having greens in our bars where you get an actual tangible amount of spinach without tasting that spinach. I think that our bars are so healthy. There's no refined sugar, but you're not like, oh, I'm eating spinach. I can taste that. Another moment was going through these massive hip surgeries where I was told by multiple doctors that my future in returning to being a professional athlete was very uncertain. And so what I leaned into that I carried through my experience of being a professional athlete was you have to control the factors that you can control because life is full of unpredicted curveballs. And as long as you know that everything in your power to control is laid out and you're doing the best of your ability to take full advantage of that, then that's the best you can do. So one of those parameters in my injury, and I've had so many injuries through the course of my career, was controlling how I showed up to PT as well as what I put into my body as far as nutrition. And so that was kind of the backdrop as to why we have adaptogens in our product. Adaptogens are a ritualistic product. They're something that you get the most benefit from the more often you eat them. So that's why I do lean into our product being like, we offer this subscribe method where you can eat a Sun bar each day, or you can have your adaptogens and so many other great aligned products that also have those. But our bars have reishi and cordyceps, which are really great for your heart health, your immune system, cardiovascular, sources of energy and stamina. So that's been a big backbone of our company as far as like what are our offerings in our product that we're presenting. And then yeah, I would say that it was kind of aha moments along the way like that.
And speaking of the product in itself, I'm a subscriber. For people watching this on TV or YouTube, I've got my box of Sun bars right here. They're really, really good. So I'm just like, when you think of like a healthy protein bar, you're like, oh, it can't be that good. They're really good, you guys. Go on sunbars.com and order yours today. All right. This part of the episode is being brought to you by Sunbars.
Yeah. Like, wow, great plug.
So we talked about differentiation, and that comes up a lot on my podcast of like how marketers can differentiate. The other piece that has been coming up quite a lot, and I had this great conversation with the global brand director of Gillette, and he talked about authenticity and branding. What role does authenticity play in Sunbar's messaging and marketing strategy?
Authenticity is everything for us. It's what you see is what you get. We're not hiding anything. Every single ingredient that you read about that's in our product is real food, as well as the people that you see who are in our imaging are like people that just authentically love our product. We, up until this year, had not turned on any single dollar on ad spend or anything like that. We really bootstrapped it. Like when I was starting Sun Bars, I mean, it was my savings that came out of like bringing together the company. And then we did like a small friends and family round to get off the ground. And the authentic story behind why we exist, why we have our differentiating factors, what direction we want to grow into is all staying true to our ethos of what we represent. And that presents clear guardrails as well. Like as we innovate and improve our product, there's a clear mission as to what we will do and what we'll never do. For instance, we won't have natural flavorings. I've had meetings with recipe developers just along the lines of, future product development, which we feel very excited about. But there's also just clear things that we will continue to stay clear of. And I think that in the business of the bar market, there are a lot of ways that you can cut corners. And that's just something that as a brand, we've made the decision consciously that we won't do. And so everywhere down to the price that we offer our product at, it's a premium product. You do have to spend more on our product than say a Cliff Bar. But guess what? You're also getting ethically sourced ingredients that are made of real food. You're not getting all of this refined sugar packaged up together in this way. And I shouldn't name like a one brand in specifics. It's just kind of the household name that I think a lot of us refer to bars as such a ubiquitous game shaper in the industry. But I would say that like the authenticity comes through in every single aspect of who we are as a brand, who we are as people behind the brand, and what our products run through as they enter the marketplace as well.
Great answer, Sasha. And you had mentioned a couple things about decision making and sort of the leadership piece of it. And it seems like it's all coming to your shoulders, but I'm really interested in how has like your like not your past, your current as a professional athlete rock climber, how has that shaped your approach to entrepreneurship and leadership?
Yeah, one of my mentors who I'm so grateful for is Jim Collins. And I have just poured through his books. And one of the most sound pieces of advice that I've read that he's reminded me is get the right people on the bus, get the right people off the bus. And so we've definitely gone through moments of transition. I think that the energy, the cohesion in the company, everyone needs to be a team player. So while my background is in an individual sport, no one gets there alone. And in climbing, while it's an individual sport, you always have a climbing partner with you. And that's just the nature of being on a wall and getting to the top of a new summit is like it's you and your climbing partner. And so when I look at the business, it's me and the team. I don't accomplish anything on my own. I have this idea, I have this mission and this clear vision of what I want the brand to be. And then I love listening to everyone on the team's opinions and making sure that no one's ever siloed. Everyone's working together. And I think that also, we're such a small, young company that there needs to be this constant flow of information and opinions and discussion, because one of the clearest examples that I can turn to that doesn't work is when you look at someone who wants to have like complete and utter decision-making control and starts talking down to anyone else. And it's been a very fascinating journey because I've learned a lot about even if someone can feel like, okay, that this could be an effective person for the company, if the energy and the cohesion on the team isn't there, it just doesn't work. And I've learned the easy way by having the right people on the bus from the beginning. And I've also learned the hard way by bringing in new people and having to very clearly see this does not work. And then that kind of like moment of levity when things get transitioned again. And so I think that constant like pivot, transition, course correct, stay on course or get back on course has been within the first, it's been now just over 2 years of business, a big learning experience as well as me as a leader. Like I'm not a trained CEO. I've been the leader of my own brand and building that. And now I happen to be the CEO of this company that I believe in so wholeheartedly. And like the passion is palpable, but the leadership skills and learning how to correspond and communicate with my team is just like that moment that it's a constant learning process. And I think that drives me. Like I want to continue to improve.
Well, Sasha, I don't know if things work in silos. You should really get back to the silos. But that's what almost every person on this podcast complains about is like, we need the information shared amongst the group so we can all be going the same way. And that's what I like about your story is that you talk about your individual brand, but you have a clear vision of what that should be, but you can take advice from other people, but you still have that clear vision. The same thing at Send Bars. When, how do you balance the thrill of sort of the rock climbing and winning and getting a gold medal to running a business where maybe there's not gold medals or there's not things that are so exciting, but you still have, points along the way that you need to celebrate? How do you balance those two?
Right now, the balance is definitely more like managing the chaos. I would say, since I'm still an active professional climber with like expeditions coming up and kind of mitigating like, okay, this is when I might be out of service completely for 2 weeks, trusting the team and knowing that everyone knows what decisions we're making and what direction we're headed. But as far as like the adrenaline, I think that a common misconception about climbing is that it's an adrenaline sport. It's actually not. When your adrenaline is very high, it's because you're responding to something having gone wrong. And I would equate climbing more to this very neurologically active sport where you're constantly puzzle solving. Like you have all of these disparate jigsaw pieces and you need to put them together, both mind and body, where you're looking at this cliff, call it like a 3,000-foot canvas, and you're trying to understand, what am I going to do in this 2 foot by 2 foot radius with my body to get through this next sequence? Okay, now I've gotten there. Now, what am I going to do in this next path to kind of continue my vertical progression up the wall? And so I think that problem solving, that constant, like, this works, this doesn't work, adjusting is very similar from what at least I've had this like foray into in business, is that you can see the summit, but you can't think about like, how am I going to get to the summit? You have to think about like the breakdown. And that's almost like physically like, what is the next pitch, or what is that checkpoint at which I'm going to get to? And so if you look at something like El Capitan in Yosemite as like one of our national treasures, I'll call it. You break that down into, call it 30 pitches, 40 pitches, or 20 pitches, depending the climb. And you see that as individual segments. And then even further, you break each pitch down into a series of moves, which we classify in climbing as sequences. In order to actually get from one pitch to the next pitch, you have to successfully climb it without falling. And that process that's involved is sometimes you do fall, then you lower back down, you figure out another way, and you get through that pitch. Okay, next checkpoint, next pitch. So kind of thinking about even like the vision that I have for the company, and then saying, well, we can't think about how we're going to get to the summit. We can know where the summit is, but we have to figure out how we get through this next pitch and then go from there. So it's kind of like this whittling down of this magnanimous process.
What a perfect answer. Like if for like any business leader or marketers out there, it's not like you want to know what the end game is, but you need what's that path to it. And for everyone listening, I don't know if it's on your website or just a YouTube video of you climbing, and you can hear the audio is you walking through like, oh, I need to put my toe here and then left here. And then it's pretty cool, like to understand that. And that's exactly business. You need to know what the next step is. Okay. So we've got a couple more questions I want to get out of you. Is that, what sort of trends do you think that you keep your eye on as a CEO? So not only in health, fitness, and nutrition, actually the bar itself and what's happening. So what keeps you up at night, or what are you keeping your eye on?
Yeah, I think that what people are looking for in their products matters a lot. Right now we hear a lot about protein. That's something that I think is really interesting, because there's products out there that are offering very high protein. But when you think about the bioavailability of those ingredients, you also want to consider, what way is my body going to be absorbing these nutrients, and how do they correspond with these other factors? Then it's like all of it goes together to make the perfect piece. And that's your microbiome. Like if you're putting in these fake ingredients, how is that translating to your gut performance as well? And so that's been factors that contribute to the ingredient panel of our bars alone as well. Is like, what sources of protein are we deriving our protein from? And how is that then corresponding to your bodily needs? Flavor profiles are obviously a big part of our innovation moving forward as well. We have 4 current flavors, and we have our aspirations to continue to innovate and create more bars down the line. So like, what are people looking for? Listening to our community and our customers and getting feedback is very important to us. Where are people shopping? Who's buying our bars? What about our content is corresponding to clicks? And also, where is social media fitting into the game of like where our brand awareness has grown? We've been a very digital first brand. So that was that we launched online out of the gates. and we did only organic traction. We weren't in retailers. We then launched on Amazon, and now we're starting to explore retail. And that's been really out of the gates exploring specialty retail. So where do people go to work out? Where do people go have this mindset of healthy eating? Where are customers shopping? And the bar industry is definitely a very crowded space. I would say that it's full of a lot of crap, but also like how do we educate people around like the ingredients and what trends are corresponding to like the ingredients that are kind of like trendy at the moment, like collagen has been something that I take every day that I've considered that would be a very smart avenue for us to explore. What do we as users of the product deploy in our own lives? Like, what are we also eating in order to then consider what are other avenues that we can innovate? So I think it's a very broad range of like absorbing information, absorbing people's advice. A lot of unsolicited opinions come to my table too. And then you're like filtering that of like, okay, great, all good information for me to have. Now, what do we take into consideration? And then what do we move forward with now? Because I would say like in this business that I'm learning that I don't have is like, I don't have patience. And as an athlete, you kind of want to do things like now, 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 now. And you're in constant control because it's just you. Having a brand, it's kind of like, okay, let's roadmap it and let's consider when a financially viable time for us to pull that lever may be. So I think that that's been like a lesson as well.
Speaking of lessons, what's one or two pieces of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
Gosh, from my own journey, I
Don't
would say,
don't do it.
yeah, no, I would say do it. Like, what's the worst that happens? You fail. Like the amount of times that I've failed on just like everything in my life, like I think that the number one starting point for me, and I would relate that to my career in climbing as well as my career now in like building this brand is passion. If you feel so strongly the world needs this, then figure out a way to do it. And then I would say that that forays into it's okay if you've never done it before. Like I even just getting into the quote unquote CPG world, like what is CPG? Consumer packaged goods. There's so many acronyms in every industry that I'm learning. And it's okay to use the internet to find things out too. I've realized like when I wanted to figure out how bars were made, I went on Google and I was just like, what's a co-packer? And then started researching co-packers in the Boulder, Denver area, and then met with different ones and found the co-packer that we use. So it all kind of narrowed back to like this space of like, I didn't know what I needed, but I could use my network and ask people and then also use the internet. It's a really valuable resource that we have at our fingertips.
Sasha, thank you so much for joining the podcast. But I do have one thing. So you guys, there's a ton of ways to find out more information about Senbar, senbars.com. Go to Sasha's website, get her book. I mean, it's a great book. The HBO documentary is tremendous. The Ali Love interview is great. But on your website, Sasha, you have like FAQs, like get to know Sasha. And there's two truths and a lie. Can I try to guess which are the two truths and a lie? So it's you make your own bars, you have dual citizenship with Canada and America, and you've swam with sharks. I know number one is a truth. You make your own bars, correct?
I make my own bars, yes.
I feel like you're an adrenaline junkie, so I feel like you've swam with sharks, and you don't have a lot of fear because you're climbing thousands of feet in the air. I'm going to say the lie is you have a dual citizenship with Canada and America.
False, actually. So I am so scared of sharks.
Are you
It's
really?
my irrational fear. I mean, maybe rational. I do have a friend who was bit by a shark. So, but no, my mom lives in Montreal and we grew up skiing at Mont Tremblant for those of you guys on the East Coast who know it. And yeah, sharks are something that absolutely terrify me.
So you'd get along with my wife, and I don't know if you're like this, but on her Instagram feed, all you see are puppies, like chocolate lab puppies, because we've got a chocolate lab, and shark attacks. I'm like, Megan, you got this. I'm like, you won't even go in the ocean. You're afraid of them, but you keep
Yeah.
on looking at it.
It feels it. It doesn't help. Yeah. I would say that like I inhabit the mountain landscapes much more often than I inhabit the depths of the sea.
Okay, so this is mine. So I'm going to give you my two truths and a lie. You ready?
I'm ready.
My signature dance move is the worm.
Great.
The second is
Strong.
when I was working in Steamboat, Colorado as a burger flipper, like on the Billy Kid Corral up there, Skydeck. Do you know who Jason Bateman is?
Yeah. Duh.
I asked out his sister, Justine. So that's number two. And then third, I've run a marathon. What are my two truths and which is the lie?
Oh gosh, that's hard because I feel like you know Justine's name. So
I
that
did go deep on that one. So that is a truth, yes. And she did not accept my ask.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, it was
Well,
fine. It was
I'm
fine.
gonna say maybe I know that Claire, your daughter, who's also at Sen Bars, and we're so
Yeah.
grateful to have her, runs marathons, but I'm wondering if you're training for one but haven't done one yet.
So what are you saying? Is that a truth or a lie?
I'm gonna say the marathon's the lie.
Well, first of all, thank you for recognizing that my signature dance move is the worm. And
Yeah, well, that I couldn't.
it's really good. I've never run a marathon. All my girls' athletic ability comes from my wife. She's a runner. Claire's a runner. You know what you need to do is, here's a quick story. So Claire, it works for Sasha, and Claire goes to University of Colorado. So we went hiking the Flatirons in Chautauqua, and we're going to the Royal Arches. And halfway through, she's like, Dad, hiking with you is like hiking with a toddler. You stop so much. You need rest. You need water. I wasn't crying, but I thought that's a little mean to call me a toddler.
You know, I don't know how a toddler hikes. So I don't have a cross comparison. I've never gone on a hike with a toddler. But you might just be curious, swapping.
The stuff there. I love it. The great Sasha DiGiulian called me. What'd you call me again?
Curious.
I love it. All right, Sasha, thanks for coming on. You were great. That's it.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Marketing Report. This show is brought to you by Verisk Marketing Solutions, an organization created to help CMOs and their partners improve the reach, timing, relevance, and compliance of every consumer engagement. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the Marketing Report wherever you get your podcasts, and check out the show notes for more information.